Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
When the Labour Party meets for its annual conference in Liverpool next month, there'll be a me and my political shadow moment, because the whole 4 days actually has a double meaning. Momentum will be in town, and both Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell will be appearing at both Momentum and the Labour Party conference, perhaps even making two different speeches for two different lots of delegates. For the writer and sometimes splenetic columnist Rod Liddle, this might be the moment that sends him over the edge as he ponders on why Labour's lost its way and its working class vote in the EU referendum to boot. He begins his report for Newsnight in Middlesbrough, where he grew up.
This is Teesside, about as resolutely, uncompromisingly Labour as anywhere in the country. And yet, like almost all working class areas beyond London, Teesside is rapidly becoming disenchanted with the party it has historically supported. Brexit was a real and glorious revolution, a sort of cri de coeur on the part of people who felt marginalised, unlistened to, and increasingly averse from the liberal politics of both the establishment and, crucially for this issue, the Labour Party. Because while this is Brexit heartland, 70% voted to leave in Hartlepool over the water, 66% back there in Middlesbrough. It's not just about that. It's not just about leaving the EU. It's also about having respect for the family, for the country, a sense of patriotism and a belief in Britain. And it's about doing a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, and also not being paid welfare. If you don't give, you don't get. The current Labour Party is largely immune to the aspirations of ordinary working class voters when it is not actively hostile to them. I thought I'd present a cheerful parody of Labour's current mindset to the people of my hometown. In exactly the spot, as it happens, where I once sold the socialist worker as an imbecilic youth.
Vote Labour to stay in the European Union and to have lots more immigration. Bring the experience of Islington to Middlesbrough. Vote Labour for fair trade coffee, muesli, solidarity with Cuba, peace, love, happiness everywhere, and Jeremy Corbyn as Prime Minister. That's what we want. Are you a Labour voter?
No.
Have you always voted Labour?
Always.
And do you like Labour now, under Jeremy Corbyn?
Tell you the truth, I don't like any of them.
Do you think they're out of touch with the northeast of England?
Yes.
Do you think we need more immigration in this country?
You're having a laugh, aren't you? More?
Sir, what we want in this country is more immigration, correct? Why do people laugh at me? What is wrong with people?
The power in the Labour Party hasn't resided in the north for a long time. These days it lives somewhere else entirely.
Well, I'm back in civilization. This is Islington, of course, and this is my granola, pistachio and blueberry porridge with Greek yoghurt. And this is Jeremy Corbyn's neck of the woods, of course, and at one point under Jeremy there were 3 members of his shadow cabinet from Islington itself, more than in the entire northeast of the country. I don't know if that's still true today, because I don't know who's in the shadow cabinet. One minute they're there, the next minute they're sobbing their hearts out on the world at one.
The place has become a sort of byword, a cliché, which somehow represents the distance between Labour and its voting base. I'm here to meet someone who might offer the party a little hope. Lord Glassman, architect of Blue Labour, advisor to important people.
Why is Labour in the trouble it's in, do you think?
Well, it's just lost its relationship with the working class and with working class leadership, with working class values and working class interests. And that's what we're seeing is supposed to be Labour.
And how has that happened, do you think?
Oh, it's been a long time coming. It was always a coalition between the progressive middle class, reforming Fabian, and more conservative, socially and more economically radical working class. But over the years, the sort of university graduates have taken over.
Social Democrats across Europe are facing a really difficult strategic dilemma, because on the one hand they have half of their electorate or so that's comprised of traditional blue-collar workers. On the other hand, they've got urban, middle-class, cosmopolitan, progressive voters. And those two groups think fundamentally differently about the key issues of the day, in particular, immigration and diversity.
Immigration is a touchstone issue. It's sort of Labour's clause 4 for today. And the activists and many of the MPs won't go near it because, of course, that massed ovine middle-class bleat of racist as soon as you raise the issue of immigration will be forthcoming from them. And yet there's no antipathy in these places, in the north, towards the immigrants. The antipathy is towards the people who allowed uncontrolled immigration to change the culture of their towns and also to undercut their wages. And yet the problems in the party seem intractable. A leader without the support of his MPs, the MPs without the support of the activists, and the activists miles out of step with the voters.
And Rod Liddle is with us. He was a Labour Party member until he was suspended earlier this year, pending an investigation. We're also joined by Barbara Toomey from Memento. Good evening to you both. Barbara, what do you make of Rod Liddle's analysis?
I think Rod Liddle's analysis is stuck in a narrative that he's trying to create. And I grew up in Barnsley, which is a very working class town, and in the same way you have in Islington, which is also consistently been rated 20 of one of the most poorest and deprived areas in the country. In Barnsley you have Silkstone, where more affluent and well-off people live, as opposed to the general working class. And this idea that, you know, just because people live in North London and are in Jeremy's constituency, they don't understand what everyday working class people will go through. It's just quite nonsense.
But Owen Jones, you know, our supported Jeremy Corbyn, has said that actually what he said was the party has got to deal with anxieties over immigration. Do you accept there are anxieties?
Since 1940, every single parliament in this country has sought to restrict immigration, and this has been done at the expense of immigrants. Immigrants who don't make laws or enforce them cannot be blamed for low wages. The government has to enforce the wage of the law. Like, I don't understand where this narrative. I do understand where this narrative comes. We've constructed this narrative and we found somewhere else to blame for the fact that employers are not willing to pay people what wages actually are.
But you do accept that some, what we might say, traditional Labour supporters have actually got anxieties over immigration because their communities are being irrevocably changed.
So when we say traditional Labour voters, black people who have come from this country since the 1940s have been traditional Labour voters. Do their concerns when it comes to inequality, when it comes to being able to access jobs, do their concerns not matter?
But rather, I mean, the fact is, whatever Brexit does, it doesn't. You know, no one's going to be repatriated. So in a sense, that's not going to be the issue. The issue is going to be no, but the issue is going to be jobs and wages, isn't it? That's what Labour supporters are actually concerned about.
Well, let's put to rest the idea that this is a chimera of some kind. You know, between 70 to 80% of the people of this country want immigration restricted. That's from every opinion poll that's been going back for the last 10 years. And increasingly, a greater proportion of black and ethnic minority immigrants want immigration restrained, more than 50%. So the idea that this is just some old-fashioned old hack harking back to the old days is absurd. I mean, it's an absurdity. And I find it slightly hilarious that someone who is a radical, you know, a Labour Party radical on the left wing of the party, should be so fervently in favour of the free movement of labour and capital. As Marx, as you know your Marx, you wouldn't be in favour of that. It's the thing which is depreciating the wages of the lowest paid, and it's also obviously leading to the grotesque exploitation of an immigrant labour force, which we see every day in the newspapers.
It has affected, Rod Liddle's right, hasn't it, low-skilled workers.
That has always existed. This is not new. Actually, what we should be doing is, again, in the way the European Union provides, legal routes for people to come to do low-skilled wages. But actually, the issue is, when you have a town like my Barnsley, which gets barely any investment and creates for jobs, the opportunity for people is to either work in a bread factory, an ASOS factory, or a chicken factory. That's the opportunities people have. The college funding has been consistently slashed. What other opportunities are there for people? You don't blame somebody else who's left everything in Europe to come and work in a cleaning job in a hospital.
Are you actually saying then that Labour supporters who do think immigration is an issue need to be re-educated.
I'm not saying we need to be re-educated. People react to
because that's what they truly feel.
People react to their realities, but actually immigrants aren't the problem. The fact that we're not creating more opportunities for people to progress and get access to education and get access to better jobs, that's the problem. The government needs to do that.
Well,
What can
where I think
immigrants
Barbara's
do
right,
about that?
absolutely right, is about the levels of investment which this government has put into places like Barnsley and a lot of the north of England. I mean, it's been lamentable, and something needs to be done. And, you know, I think a Blue Labour programme, for example, would devolve more power to the regions and put far more investment into those regions. But I think it really is cloud cuckoo land to believe that, to try to say that immigration hasn't caused these problems.
I did not say that immigration hasn't caused this problem.
Well,
I said it's not the sole purpose, as the narrative you like to say that it is. Actually, what is the problem with demonising groups of people?
No,
that's what it is. Because when you get on TV and you say people come in here to work 3 or 4 jobs in order to provide for their family is the problem.
You misunderstand.
You don't. You misunderstand. Then that's the problem. The thing we should be talking about is investment for people, for them to be able to have opportunities, which this government has failed to do.
Well, that's patent nonsense. I mean, I'm not demonising immigrants whatsoever, and I wouldn't do so. I think the immigrants who come here work very hard, and I'm deeply opposed to David Cameron's plans to withdraw benefits from, for example, Polish immigrants. I think it's disgusting. People should be treated as equal. But the fact is that successive reports have shown that large-scale immigration, and the larger scale, the worse it is, depresses the wages of the poorest people. People who have fought for years to have a decent standard of living.
Just for the closing minutes here, you characterise Momentum as being a kind of party of kind of, you know, the middle-class kind of liberals, the Islington lot.
Yeah.
But actually, Momentum, you have to say, has a broad swathe of support in all areas of England.
Oh, well, it's certainly got a broad sweep of it controls the Labour Party. You know, there is no question about it. It controls the Labour Party. And something I would agree probably with Barbara about is that I don't think that Jeremy Corbyn should have been challenged in the leadership election. He was democratically elected. For whatever fatuous reason, the party was opened up to hundreds of thousands of people.
The reason why Jeremy was elected, because he does actually speak to this working class people in Middlesbrough, because he's talking about investment, renationalising the railways, actually creating jobs and opportunities for people. He talks about the cradle to the grave. He talks about the cradle to the grave education that people aren't able to have now because of the swathe of cuts that this government has had. From Oldham to Hackney, Labour is gaining more working class voters.
Can I just ask you, Barbara, do you think, let's just, the one accusation I want to put, that Rod Liddle said, Momentum controls the Labour Party.
Well, it does.
Labour Party members control the Labour Party. They're the people that are active and involved. I'm a member of the Labour Party.
Yes, I don't disagree. I think that's absolutely fair. I think Labour has been taken over largely by Momentum and by people who support Jeremy Corbyn. I don't have an argument about that. The fact that he's utterly unattractive to any voter in the north of the country.
People are allowed to organise. Groups of people believe in the same thing. We are allowed to organise.
That's why we're in the Labour Party.
There. Of course you are.
Thank you both very much indeed.
I've been getting away with it all.